Folks, as you know, here on All In with Bryan Weatherford, as well as our entire network, Biz TV, we are first and foremost all about business. And there's so many issues related to business, whether you're just starting out or you're trying to expand, or maybe you're just trying to keep your head above water. And one of those biggest ones, financing. How are you going to get started? Where are you going to get that money? What's the best way to do it? What are some options, maybe non-traditional options, if you will, to get the money that you need, the capital, to get going, to help your dream come true? Well, guess what? Our next guest here with us on All In today does just that, business financing. He's a business finance consultant extraordinaire with Four Kings Capital, and his name, Bill King. Bill King, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Am I right? All businesses are getting started. You got to have money. You got to get some startup capital.
It's one of the biggest challenges for business owners. A statistic that's very interesting is probably between 60 and 70% of all small to mid-sized businesses initially get turned down.
Wow, turned down by traditional
financing.
And why is that?
There's a variety of reasons. It's one of the reasons why I got out on my own. I spent 20 years in commercial banking, lending to small to mid-sized businesses.
Wow, you know all the answers.
Well, I've been around. I started with bigger banks like a lot of people. I worked when I was back in El Paso for Chase and Bank of America.
Yeah, okay.
I got a lot of good experience there, but didn't like the corporate bureaucracy. So I moved on to Oklahoma, where I worked for some more regional type banks.
Right.
And I learned a lot about credit, learned a lot about financing in general. I've done a lot of SBA loans.
Well, and you're being just a little bit modest because we were chatting off the air. Your time in Oklahoma, you were an award-winning banker.
Well, I was fortunate enough in 2014 to be awarded the Financial Services Champion by the SBA for the state of Oklahoma.
The entire state of Oklahoma. That's a big deal.
It was. No, thank you for that.
And that all helps you transition to where you are today. And I got to get this in here before the interview's over. As I was writing down notes and stuff and reading up on Bill, he had a great line I think it's going to segue perfectly. And the line is this: when banks say no, we say maybe. Right?
Exactly.
For a long time, particularly with the big boys, you were the banker that said no.
Exactly. And you know, every bank that I worked for, they had a different credit box. And when I give presentations and workshops, that's a lot of what I talk about.
Okay.
I talk about the 5 C's of credit that banks look at. And every bank has a different credit policy. So one of my frustrations was, having worked for various banks, is I had plenty of loans that I knew someone would do, but we couldn't.
And but your hands were tied at that time. You're right there in this box.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I always did a good job of referring to other people and trying to find them an alternative, because I want to help people. Most bankers do. And so I made a business out of that a few years ago and started it full time about 6 months ago. And I'm happy to say that in the last 6 months, we've helped over $7 million of funding for businesses that were turned down at other places.
$7 million in 6 months from people that their dream was paused because they couldn't do it, but you were able, for what you're doing now, to help them out. That's very impressive.
Yeah,
very
impressive. It's very inspiring, because a small business owner, gets turned down. They were trying to get an SBA loan at a larger bank, and a lot of times it's how it's packaged. A lot of times you got to change the packaging. You got to look at the strengths and the weaknesses, and then you just present it to different lending sources. I had a deal a couple of weeks ago for $1.5 million that we funded. That was a borrower that I took to 10 different lending sources before we found the right one.
Wow, that you took to 10. So that the borrower, if they didn't have you, they would just given up. They'd have to.
Probably. It was a tricky deal.
I mean, for as long as you've been doing what you do, a lot of times, I think it's great that you worked for the big banks to learn why they say no, to get you to where you are today, to where y'all can at least say maybe.
Right.
You know the questions to ask, and you know the answers to expect and how to get around that before the process even starts.
Thank you.
Genius move on your part, actually.
Thank you. And one of the reasons I use that tagline, when banks say no, we say maybe, is because a lot of people in my industry will advertise that when banks say no, we say yes, and they make it sound like it's the easy button.
Right, it's a done deal.
And I know from experience it's not. There's some deals that just can't get done.
Okay.
That you need to maybe bring in an equity partner. They need to do something different with their business. So I'm very honest with people, say, look, maybe I can help you, or at the minimum, I can at least tell you why you can't get approved right now and what you need to change.
And give them the steps that they could do. There's all sorts of variables involved, I guess, when people are trying to borrow money. I mean, whether it's the type of business, how long, look at me, I'm telling you what these variables are, but give me a couple of bullet points and different variables.
Sure. Quick rundown of what I call the 5 C's of credit. The first thing that they look at is your capacity to repay. Do you show that you have demonstrated ability based off of your historical financials or based off of projections to pay the loan? That's the first thing.
Fair enough.
Second thing, what type of collateral are you offering? Are you buying a building? Is it purchasing a business? Are you buying equipment? Is it working capital? There's a lot of different things, and each one has its own challenges to it. Then they look at the business itself, of what I call the capital, to say, what assets do you own? How much do you owe? Are you already over leveraged when you're coming asking for more money? And then we look obviously at the character of the individual. Do they have good credit? Have they shown that they've taken care of things properly in the past? Is there bankruptcy in their history? And the last thing is what I call conditions, which you really can't control. For example, some banks don't like certain industries.
Okay.
For example, when I was with one bank in Oklahoma, they had a concentration of too many of a certain type of hotel in the hospitality sector.
Right.
So regardless of the quality of your hotel project, they weren't going to lend in that area. So sometimes it's an internal issue at the bank.
Well, the individual banks want to spread their risk, if you may. They don't want to get all their eggs in one basket. They like to have multiple baskets.
Right, and regulators require that, so it's not the bank's fault. But those are all things that sometimes you just are in the wrong place or you're talking to the wrong banker.
Timing is everything.
That's right.
Why is it, Bill, that you're so passionate, for lack of a better word, about helping these small to mid-sized businesses versus the big boys over here?
I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. Before I got into banking, I had my own small business for a little while, practically went bankrupt and learned a lot, but then started up. And I've always been into type of business-to-business sales. So I've always had a lot of passion for entrepreneurs. And even working with businesses, I always want to help them succeed. And one of the frustrations as a banker is having to say no.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in a position where I can advocate on their behalf, and we're not always going to get every deal approved, but they're going to know that we've put in a good try and that we did what we could to try to help them.
Well, and you mentioned it earlier too, Bill. The thing that really caught me, the other thing that you can do is let them know why we can't do it at this time, but here are some steps to perhaps we can do this again later if you can do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. That's good. Instead of just being the cold-hearted bank that says no, you're the guy that says, look, I hate to say no. I have to say no right now, however, ... That's huge. That's huge for small, because a lot of times it's their first time. It's their first time to be out there in the small business world. They don't know, but you can talk to them with so many experiences in your mind, not the least of which you too were a small business owner, and you have been in their seat before as well.
Exactly, and to your point, most small business owners, they're very good at what they do, but they don't understand business or finance.
Bingo.
That's usually not their background.
No.
The vast majority of them are very good technicians at something. They're great plumbers, they're great master electricians, they're great at something, but business is just not their space.
Yep. The other thing that I saw that's really important to you, which I think all small businesses need to take advantage of, is networking. Why do you feel that's so important?
I believe that we need to build trust with people, and I'm always constantly out networking, trying to provide people solutions.
Right.
I've always done that even when I was in Oklahoma. It's probably where I learned it the most. I spent a little time in Arkansas. And in smaller communities, you network a lot more.
Sure.
I think you find it to be a lot more important. And one of the things that I do for people is, if I can provide them some type of solution, if it's, who's a good commercial real estate person, who's a good insurance person, who's a good title company, I like that I've got good contacts in a lot of different industries.
Well, that's important, but also the other side of networking is when those title companies, insurance companies, et cetera, they see somebody that's struggling for money, they're going to say, you might want to get a hold of Bill, Four Kings Capital. Might be able to help you out.
That's what I'm hoping for.
So what, the Four Kings, you're one of them. Is it a family business? What's the deal? Where the name come
It
from?
is. The number one king is my wife. Which
Fair enough.
Anyone that's been married any period of time, no, that's the way you do it.
I get that. I thought it was my wife all this time. Okay, go ahead.
So we've been married over 20 years, so my
Good
wife
for
is
you.
the first. She's in charge. Then there's me. And then our two kids, my daughter Gabby and my son Michael, help out with the business.
I love that.
Gabby, we call our HR department because she lets us know when we're getting out of line.
The Four Kings of Capital, folks. What the number two king right here, Bill King, was with us, and he's there to help out. He and the entire Four King company are there to help all small businesses, small to medium businesses, with that pesky thing of financing. Bill can help you out. Bill, thank you. You have a great background. You turned it into a wonderful business to help out other businesses. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you as well. We'll catch you next time.